Now, I want to ask you two last things before we wrap up. Your book, obviously, a lot of it talks about the, for lack of a better term, the rock and roll lifestyle, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And you've been there, done that. You lived it. You talked about it in the book. You mentioned at the start that you've been clean for 17 years, I believe you said. Was there a particular rock bottom for you where you just where you
Yes.
made that decision to clean up?
Absolutely. The day that I cleaned up was it was pretty interesting. I was at Madonna's birthday party. It was down in Miami Beach, and I don't actually remember this. People told me what I did. So everything I know about that night is basically sort of secondhand information.
Right.
But the one part I do remember going there. I do remember the girl that I had with me. Um, I don't remember people carrying me home. I don't remember Madonna telling me, "Nile, there's no one here. There's no one here. You're here by yourself. Everyone is gone." I don't remember any of that. Um,
Wow.
but what happened was a guy recorded my performance of me playing at a nightclub the night before,
Hmm.
and he played it for me that following day. And also, I had my first bout of what they call cocaine psychosis, where I started hearing voices, and I believed that the mafia had put a contract out on me.
Mm.
So I went I, after that, and I knew that I was hearing the voices because they were clear as a bell, but no one was in the room, but I could hear it, and it
Right.
was a constant din of voices going, "Nile, Nile, Nile, over here, Nile, Nile, over here," and then I would go look out the window, and there'd be nobody there.
Mm.
Nile, Nile, over here, Nile, come here, over here. But they were clear, just like I'm speaking to you.
Right.
Um, so I realized as the cobwebs started to clear that I was losing my mind.
Mm.
So I got on a plane, went back to New York, and while I was on the plane, I read a magazine article that said that Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones um, was going to stop using drugs because he's noticed that drugs um, are an impingement on his ability to play music, or something like, I'm paraphrasing, but
Mm.
that's
Right.
basically what he says. It impairs his ability to play music, and he can live without drugs, but he can't live without music. So he decided to give up the drugs. And
Hmm.
I thought, oh man, I had known Keith because I had worked on Mick Jagger's solo album, his first solo album, and Mick wanted me to produce the Rolling Stones. So we've had a number of meetings with Keith and blah blah blah. And I'd seen Keith, and a lot of my friends played with him, so we were cool. Also, he's my neighbor in
Ah.
Connecticut. He lives right near me.
Okay.
So I got sober in Connecticut and blah, 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 and I went into the rehab for 8 months. And the day that I came out, like nobody knew that I had come out because it's an anonymous program.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
came out and I went to a takeout food joint. And as I walked into the place, the maitre d' says, "Hey, Nala, I have a good friend of yours on the phone." And I says, "Well, how could it be a good friend of mine? Nobody knows I'm here." I didn't say anything about the rehab, but I said, "But I've been away for a while, so how would anybody know?" He says, "No, I guarantee you, it's a friend of yours." So I get on the phone, and it's Keith Richards
Yeah.
asking me for coke. I'm like going, "Oh,
Geez.
you got to be kidding me! Here I quit because of you, sort of, somewhat, and now I get out, and the first day I get out, you're asking me for coke." And I thought it was funny. Of course, I didn't say to him I was sober or anything like that. I
Right.
didn't make a big deal out of it. I just said, "Oh, Keith, man, I don't have any, but talk to this guy. Maybe he can hook you up." So I thought that was ironic, and that's the interesting story about my book, is that it's loaded with irony. Everything in my life seems to have this ironic thread going through it.
Right.
One day I think everything is going to be fantastic, and it's the greatest day of my life. The next day, like the way my book ends, I have the best night of my life. It's just incredible. I feel like $1 million. Within a few hours, I get a phone call from my doctor telling me, "Nile, you have very aggressive cancer." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And he says, "Well, if 1 is manageable and 4 is a complete catastrophe, you have a very strong 3."
Wow.
So it's like that's the story of my life. I have good, bad, yin, yang, sweet, sour, you know, greatest day of my life, next day you have cancer. It's like, give me a break.
And I also wanted to ask you about that, your cancer diagnosis, because I noticed that you've been blogging about it. So I just want to ask you, how are you feeling today, and how are things going with that?
It's a battle. It's a real battle. I mean, cancer is no joke. I try and laugh about it. I try and stay positive. I just saw a television special just before you called me, and it was so sad. I mean, I don't even have a year clean. I get tested every 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was treated surgically January 4th of this year. So hopefully January 4th or thereabouts, I'll go in and I'll have my first year. And I look at it sort of like the way that I got sober. I have 17 years now, but I didn't get 17 years in a day. It took 17 years to get 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
So time takes time. Right now, I'm cancer-free, as my doctor jokes. You're cancer-free unless it comes back. What do you mean unless it comes back? Well, unless it comes back. I'm like, well, He says, yeah, because once you get cancer, you are sort of prone. I have a good friend. She's had cancer 6 times.
Wow, yeah.
I'm like, what? And then last night, well, because of my blog, I talk to people every day.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a day that I wake up that I don't hear some horrible story or some wonderful story about cancer, because I talk about it openly, because I was terrified, and every now and then I still have moments of terror, and that's just how it is. And once it hits you, as I say, cancer is not for the weak.
Right.
You got to have it together to deal with this, because the treatments are, I mean, it's worse than the disease sometimes. You say to yourself, boy, I mean, many times I said to myself, can I have the cancer back?
Yeah.
Because I felt fine. That day that my doctor called me, I felt like $1 billion. I jumped on a plane and did a concert in Rome and felt great.
Right.
But it was true. It was only a matter of days after that I was doing a show with Earth, Wind, and Fire and lost muscle strength in my right arm, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is that about? So now they're starting to poke around in my brain. I'm like, whoa, dudes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what type of cancer.
I had a very, very aggressive prostate cancer. And when I say aggressive, I mean it's that off the charts, like Frank Zappa stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The kind, I mean, you can look this up. It's, it's what they call, well, I don't know what the actual slang is for it, but it's what they call aggressive, and, it's potentially metastatic cancer. I mean, it looks really, really ugly when they find it. When they found mine, it was looking the ugliest of the ugly. It was on what they say on the Gleason scale, it was a Gleason 9. And when you look that up, you'll see right away what that is. That is not good. It's very scary. Every doctor was worried, sick, and they tell you to go out and get second and third opinions, but they say, but don't take too long.
Right. Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I think we have, in this moment right now, I think we have a great opportunity to inform and encourage other people, and you've done that throughout your career with your music. But with this in particular, and I didn't mean to get off on this tangent, but if you can, in regards to your cancer and how you were just talking about being told that, it's an aggressive form of cancer, and having actually faced those fears yourself, how would you advise someone else to handle such a situation? In other words, how do you, because it seems even as you're describing it, you still seem to have an upbeat, at least attitude about it, a positive attitude about it. How do you remain so?
I just choose to look at it that way. And that's why I don't really want to try and give advice about this stuff, because I know that I happen to be a certain type of person. And I really look at a glass as half full rather than half empty. I am so optimistic, but a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people will wallow in the pain and things like, oh, and the misery. I'm just not that person.
Okay.
And maybe it's because I have music in my life. Maybe because I've learned how to appreciate very, very simple things. When I was in the rehab, I used to spend time standing on this little footbridge and just staring at goldfish. Now, this is a guy who's made hundreds of millions, sold hundreds of millions of records, and I'm standing there looking at a footbridge at goldfish, thinking that they're beautiful and they're wonderful. I'm not thinking about competing. When Michael Jackson called me to play on History, I told him no first. He had to convince me to come do it, because I had said to myself, I've moved on from that life. I've moved on from that world. I do not belong in that world anymore. I don't need to make records anymore. I've already lived that part of my life, just like I don't sniff glue anymore. I don't need to go back to that, as romantic and as wonderful as it was. Not that I'm comparing playing guitar and making records with sniffing glue, but if you're a drug addict, they're almost the same.
Depends on what your perspective is in that moment.
A good tube of glue is pretty good sometimes. So, when you were like me, but so I just try and stay upbeat, man, because life is really, really short. And if you look at, if you see my blog, maybe you've happened upon the picture that I show the full Early Chic organization, and it's a picture of Luther Vandross, Raymond Jones, Bernard Edwards, Tony Thompson, and NILE ROGGERS. Those are the 5 guys, period, in that picture. And then there's a bunch of women, all the girls that sang and played with us, they're all in that one picture. Out of all those 5 guys, 4 of them are dead. So I look at my life and I go, wow. When you look at the picture, it's like when you were a kid, you say, what's wrong with this picture? Well, the thing that would make it complete is if I'm dead. If that last guy is gone, then the picture makes sense.
Right.
So I look at that picture and I think, man, I'm some kind of lucky person, because all those guys are gone, and Bernard's been dead 15 years.
Wow. Yeah, it's hard to
been
believe it's been that long.
6.5 years. Raymond Jones, who was 19 when he joined us, Mr. Organic Food and blah, 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 and this and that, and the super health guy. Raymond Jones, 19 years old when he joined Chic, died 6 years to the day of Luther Vandross's death, the exact same day. I mean, these things are just such wild coincidences, and I'm the only guy who's alive, and I was the worst. Like, out of all those guys, if you had said back in the day, hey man, who's not going to make it until their 50th birthday, you'd say, NILE, he's the guy. NILE's going to be gone by 35. He's got 10 good years of doing this, and that's it, man. So get it out of him now, because he ain't going to be around.
Yeah.
And the fact that I'm still here, even though it's an uphill battle and I'm fighting a new obstacle, my whole life is ironically filled with obstacles, and as is everyone else's life. It's ups and downs. Life is a series of really, really bad stuff, and every now and then something good happens, and you got to learn to enjoy those good things, because most of your life is like, oh God, how am I going to pay the rent? My brother's in jail, and the cops stopped me. I bought this new car and it's a ripoff. That's what life is. Every now and then, in the middle of all that, you get, man, I saw this movie the other day and it was great. Oh, I met this person and they make me really happy. Shoot, I was over my grandmother's house. That food was fantastic.
Yeah. Lastly, now, I want to ask you, you seem to have lived a lot of different lives as detailed in your book, and we certainly hope that you're around for many, many more years. But as we wrap up here, I want to ask you, what do you hope is the legacy you'll leave behind?
I hope I leave a ton of great music, and I hope that my charity, the We Are Family Foundation, becomes as big as the song We Are Family. I hope that it gets to the point where it's self-sustaining, that instead of having 19 schools built and 100 and something kids, that are alumni. That it's thousands and thousands of kids and thousands of schools and gazillions of dollars, and we've done great things, and these kids have gone on to change the world because that's what they're doing now. The kids in my program have some of the most dynamic ideas and implementation practices, and that's what we do, is we help them do those things better. And if that's what I'm known for, and people say, oh, and by the way, that's a song. They go, really? That was a song? In other words, if the charity becomes the thing, and for real, the reason why I feel like this is because when I was a kid, it was these after-school programs and these mentorship programs that helped me. I learned jazz at a thing called Jazzmobile. That was an after-school program that was taught to kids free, and we had the musical genius like Billy Taylor and Ted Dunbar teaching us jazz free, and sophisticated jazz that you couldn't pay enough for, and we're getting this stuff free. And I say to myself, boy, I'd like to be able to do that, and I don't want to be the egotistical guy that says, well, you got to do what I do. You got to do music, and that's what I'm going to teach. That's not what I want to do. That I had a potpourri of things that were given to me free, and I chose music. So my charity supports kids that have a varied menu of things that they're dealing with when it comes to helping the world achieve peace. And what we mean by peace, we don't necessarily mean disarmament. We mean a peaceful life, peaceful existence, food, clothing, shelter, education, those type of things. Because without those things, without those basic needs being met, peace is not even possible. So our kids are very diverse. We have kids that are musicians, kids that are filmmakers, but we have other kids that are egg farmers. We have kids that, sew stockings and make mosquito nets. We have kids that do first aid. So it runs the gamut of interest, but they work together as one gigantic family because the overall mission, the overall statement that our organization makes is that we are one big global family. And I don't know if you noticed, but the other day we just we passed a huge milestone. Now there are 7 billion people on this earth. 7 billion.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
That's ridiculous, man. 7 billion people. We better have a generation of kids that are really supportive and tolerant of each other, because with that kind of population, and it ain't going to take long to get to 8 billion. That's the problem, is that once you get to numbers like that, the growth becomes exponential. I mean, from 7 billion to 8 billion is not going to take as long as from 6 billion to 7 billion.
Yeah.
And from 8 to 9 is going to be shorter, and from 9 to 10, it's ridiculous.
Well, let's give some of that 7 billion some quick information about where they can go to find out more about your foundation. I'm assuming there's a website, right?
Yeah, everything in my life is easy. So just like my website is NILERODGERS.com. We Are Family is WeAreFamilyFoundation.com.
Okay.
It's actually .org, but .com will get you there. It's WeAreFamilyFoundation.org, and you got to remember it's foundation. WeAreFamilyFoundation.org. And
you also mentioned that you're on Twitter, so how can people hit you up on Twitter?
Oh, Nile Rodgers. Come on, I'm at Nile Rodgers. Everything about me is simple. At Nile Rodgers, NileRodgers.com. We Are Family Foundation. That's it.
And are you also on Facebook? Because I'm there a lot, so I wanted to ask about that also.
I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
Too. Same thing. Nile Rodgers. Nothing to it. Simple.
Cool. Well, I tell you, it's been a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. Anytime that you want to share with us at soulmusic.com about anything that you're doing, our doors are open. Just want to remind anybody who's reading or listening to this interview that your book, The Freak, An Upside Down Story of Family, Disco, and Destiny, is available right now at Amazon.com. Any place where books are sold, they can find it. It's all over the place. I wish you the best with the book and all of your future endeavors.
Thank you very much, man. Really, really great.